Let's get sweaty.
Hey guys, welcome to a Shenmue Dojo video. Today's video I'm going to be talking about the relationship between Sega and Shenmue. Now this is the modern day relationship. I'm not going to go too much into the historical side of stuff. That's in our podcast and other videos. You can check that out if you want to. This is sort of about the modern day stuff, talking about what Sega have done, what they could do, but probably won't. Some little bits around sort of fan expectations as well, and maybe what they could do going forward potentially as well. Now, a little bit of a disclaimer here. This has sort of come off the back of a post that I saw on the Shenmue 500k asking around what people would like from Shenmue 4, and lots of people are saying we'd love Sega to get involved and all the rest of it. And also the recent podcast by the Sega guys who talked about Shenmue at length. They went across the 3 games. Go and check that podcast out if you haven't done so already, because it's a really good deep dive into Shenmue as a whole sort of franchise, looking at it from the retro perspective as well. So go and check that out if you haven't done so already. So let's start off with what Sega have done in sort of, I guess, recent times with the Shenmue franchise. So first and foremost, I guess the biggest thing they've done is they have actively licensed the IP to Wisenet. Wisenet are given what I'd call a pretty clear run of what they can do with the franchise, generally speaking. Now, I have spoken to several people within the games industry who have all commented that it's very, very unusual for a company to give another company pretty much relative free reign over what they do with that particular IP when they don't own it. So for Sega to go and do that obviously shows a good level of respect to Yu Suzuki and his desire to hopefully finish Shenmue franchise in game form or whatever. So that's a real positive to Sega, and I don't think it gets enough credit given the other things that have gone on, especially fairly recently, that maybe overshadow it, but we shouldn't forget that, and as I say, it's generally quite unheard of. They then also let a lot of merchandise be made. Obviously, Limited Run Games have done their merchandise recently, which is shipping at some point later this year, and there's Shenmue 2 merch to come. Insert Coin have done a load of merchandise. You had Way of Records do the music box, which is behind me, and there's been a steady flow of merchandise over the years. So again, they're quite willing to let people do those sorts of things as well. It's relatively low risk to them, I guess, but again, they're allowing the IP to be used at least, which is probably better than Sega have been with some of their other stuff, which has been left to essentially die. So again, that's a real positive. 2018 re-releases, obviously that happened. I am going to talk about it again on the negative side of things in a bit, but they did still go ahead and do it. Now we can talk about the quality of it and where it was lacking in some areas, but they still did it, and it sold pretty well. I think Sega were happy with the performance of it. So again, it's a positive that they've taken this on, their reasons for doing so. I'll come on to a bit later on. Then, of course, you've got the anime itself. They allowed the license for the anime to actually happen, allow for the source materials, etc. to be used, and allowed Jason DeMarco and the team to go ahead and make what was a wonderful anime. Now, I'm going to talk about, in a minute, some odd decisions around that anime and what they didn't do, but again, it was still a positive that they allowed this thing to essentially go ahead and happen. And I think over the years, Sega have become a bit more lenient in letting people use their IP and try and drive things forward that way. But that doesn't sort of go away from some, I guess, odd decisions that have been made, potentially. Now, the first one, come off the back of the discussion about the anime that I've just come on to, is there was no merchandise in the West. Now, in Japan, you had the bags that had the Dragon the Phoenix on it. You had the soundtrack. You had the stamp sets as well, and the towel and everything, which are behind me. That was brilliant, really good promotion. And you also had the map as well, which again you can see behind me. But they did nothing in the West. Take out a Blu-ray release, which I think is probably its own separate issue, I guess. They did none of that in the West. They did no merchandise, no figurines, no statues, no posters, nothing. Now, so again, talking to people, there may have been something happening or going on, but maybe the idea was nixed. I have no real solid evidence of this, but it just seems really odd, potentially stupid in my opinion, that they didn't capitalize on the anime and the success of the anime through merchandise. Because again, Shenmue fans would have lapped it up. We lap up merchandise, we buy a lot of the merchandise. It seemed a bit of a no-brainer, but again, they didn't do it. The next one, Shenmue Online. Now, this was obviously way back, back in sort of 2004, going all the way through to sort of 2006, on and off, and it was a complete mess, and development changes, and developer changes, and court battles, and all the rest of it. But they still spent around $20 million back then. Now, I don't know what that is adjusted for inflation, but $20 million back then making something that wasn't Shenmue 3 and that nobody asked for. Yet, it obviously ended up being a big loss to Sega because it was $20 million and the game never released. Now, I know Shenmue 1 and 2, the whole development cycle, the $47 or $70 million that was spent on this, it didn't make its money back, and I get that given how much the costs were. But at least it made some money back. This made bugger all back. Nobody asked for it, and it just confused everybody. Now, I get why they did it in some respects. They were chasing the MMO sort of trend at the time, but nobody asked for it. It's a very odd decision to invest in something like that when they could have just invested in a Shenmue 3. Whether it had made its money back or not, I do not know. But let's be honest, it would have made some money back. So they got some return investment on this. But for whatever reason, it just didn't happen. And then, again, I call it an odd decision, but I'm going to talk about it more in a little bit, is the next remake from the re-releases that was done back in 2018. Digital Foundry released footage of the cancelled sort of up-res everything remake of Shenmue, and it looked in a pretty good state in terms of being playable potentially. There was a lot going on. It got, for whatever reason, Sega said it wasn't matching potentially the quality they wanted and wasn't going to please Shenmue fans. I don't know. I can't talk, but I know that's another missed opportunity in some respects, given the hype around the franchise at the time. And with Shenmue 3 then just being about a year out from release, it would have been an ideal opportunity to potentially release something like that. It didn't happen. Maybe an odd decision, but something I'll talk to a little bit more as we go through the video. So then, sort of moving, I guess, forwards, is what they could do and what they probably won't, quite frankly. So the big one is what everybody wants, and I think we'd all be very happy about this, is that they make Shenmue 4 on a AAA budget, and RGG picked this up. Now, there is an argument, this was presented in the podcast I mentioned previously by the Sega guys, would they want to pick something up halfway through? It is a very good point, and it's something that, again, would, I think, need a lot of thinking around, because you've got to maintain an interest in a franchise that's now, it would be 4 games deep. How do you maintain that? How do you catch people up? And is it going to make sense from a business perspective and a viability perspective? I don't know. The other option with it, and I've talked about a reboot at length in a previous video, is they could do a reboot and just go, like, sod it, if we're going to pick this thing up, let's remake it from the ground up, and let's, like, sort of bomb on with this and see whether we can gather new people that way. Using RGG would be ideal because they've got a really solid fan base there from the Like a Dragon Yakuza series. I think they could do it. I think they'd understand the core elements of what makes Shenmue Shenmue, and I think they would understand and differentiate it enough away from the Yakuza formula to keep Shenmue's soul and identity. Just my personal opinion there. But you need to look at it from a different perspective here a little bit as well. RGG are busy. Yeah, they're making Yakuza games every year. You've got Project Century, which is a new IP that they're investing in, which arguably would have a more of a risk than rebooting a Shenmue potentially. That's could be up for debate, I guess. And then they're doing Virtua Fighter. So for me, that's a clear signal that potentially the Sega aren't really that bothered about it. They're going, well, we've got other things to do. We're going to do other franchises. They're reviving other IP that aren't Shenmue. So there's that element of we don't really give a monkeys. So that's probably why they won't go and do that. I'd love to be very wrong on this and be proven wrong. I just can't see it. So then we come on to recognising Shenmue itself as a franchise and how influential it was. Now, this obviously recently, at the back end of last year, 29th December 2024, was the 25th anniversary of Shenmue's release, and that was in Japan. Now, we had a lot of Japanese gaming outlets celebrating it. We had the Famitsu interviews, which was fantastic, told us about the PlayStation 2 build and all of that. Sega Japan didn't tweet a damn thing about it. Now, Sega West have probably taken a bit of a brunt from everybody in that not happening. Now, I don't know if that's necessarily down to them or not. I'd give them the benefit of the doubt, potentially, because obviously we've got the 25th anniversary coming over in the West. I think it's November the 9th for US and December the 1st, I want to say from memory, for the PAL regions. I would hope that Sega recognise that 25th anniversary, certainly in the West where Shenmue was more popular. If they don't, that's a real slur towards the franchise and actually what it stood for and how influential it was. Whether you like it or not, most people who certainly work in games will acknowledge what Shenmue did. And if Sega, who own the IP, are refusing to do that, that shows for me just what regard they hold Shenmue in. It's great they license it out, but they clearly don't give a crap about it, which is, would be a shame. Now, to flip that, they did mention that Shenmue came into the Virtua Fighter video that they did recently when Yu Suzuki was brought out to talk about Virtua Fighter. But again, it was only very, very loose. And there is also another argument here that if they start mentioning Shenmue a bit more actively, does that then set fan expectations, running off wildly, where in actual fact, they are just wanting to give a tip of the hat to what Shenmue did, but don't have any intention of coming forward and doing anything with it. Now, in my view, if that was going to be the case, they should probably say something to that effect and just manage those expectations, but they could just be going the whole silent approach to go, we're not going to do it, and we'll just keep quiet on it. Now, the next thing they could do, sort of based off of that, I guess a little bit, is they could do like Shenmue DLC and Virtua Fighter or Sonic Racing. But again, you'd have to be clear, they're not going to be making a new game. They're just recognising the IP and want to use the IP as part of these other games they're doing. Now, for the Sonic Racing stuff, you could use a Shenmue world in it, for example, or you could put Ryo in. He's been in the other games previously. Virtua Fighter's got much more of a closer tie to it. It was obviously all we know that Virtua Fighter RPG was was the original thing that Shenmue came from. The whole link between Akira and Ryo is there. Everything links together, but again, this raises potentially expectation to the fan base that they might do something that's probably a bit more, I guess, what we'd want, but Sega probably aren't willing to. But for me, it would just show a better level of respect for the legacy IP, even if, I guess, the president doesn't seem that sort of retro company anymore. On top of that, again, like when we talk about remake, they could do a remake, and they could look at reviving the old remake project from the 2018 remasters, for example. But again, I just don't think they will. Now, they did the re-releases, and that's great, but I think they did it off the back as a reaction to the Shenmue 3 Kickstarter. Now, the Shenmue 3 Kickstarter got us this game, got us the anime, but would they have done it without it? I'm not convinced. And that, for me, again, shows that they probably, if that hadn't happened, I think we'd be in the same situation now. You'd only be able to play it on Dreamcast or emulators. Just my opinion, of course. And the other thing they could do, but again, it's probably minor a little bit with legal complications as well, but I reckon they could get around it, is get a Season 2 of the anime out there. If they really wanted to, they could use the anime to finish the Shenmue story and get us off of their backs if they wanted to. Let's put it there out there for everybody. They could push this over the line, but again, they didn't do any merch for it, so they don't seem particularly interested in pushing this over the line, yet are making films about Streets of Rage, Golden Axe, TV shows. They've done Yakuza as a TV show, which was, I guess, came to mixed reviews. But Shenmue's anime actually is widely recognised as a good anime. A very good anime. Sort of 4.5 stars on Crunchyroll. I think it's got a 7 out of 10 on IMDb. It's done pretty well for itself. And I think it was the 5th most popular new anime for Crunchyroll in 2022. So that says plenty about how good this thing was. But they're not, certainly on the surface, seeming to want to push that over the line and maybe use that medium to get Shenmue finished. But I guess having Shenhua and the Sega logo at the start of the Sonic films, at least they haven't taken it out of that, right? But anyway, we'll move on to now sort of why we're targeting Sega, I guess, and the fan expectations around their involvement. Because you're probably going to look at me and go, look, okay, so you slated some of the things they could do and won't do, so why are we bothering targeting them? That is a very fair question here. But based on everything going on, the fact is, it is their IP, and they should always be reminded, they should be treating that IP with a bit of respect. They have this habit, and I am going to say it, and lots of people say it, that they let a lot of IP just rot. They don't do anything with it, and then if they do, it tends to be a bit too late. Now, we need obviously to keep the Shenmue IP alive and keep reminding Sega that you have this wonderful franchise that you could do something with. Whether you choose to do something with it or not is one thing, but at least show it the respect that it deserves and recognize just how influential this franchise was in what we see in modern gaming today. Not just Yakuza, but all over the place as well. So that is why we need to be targeting them. They own the IP, and like I said at the top of the video, they have been very good in letting the license be used to use Suzuki Wisenet for merchandise and everything. But the best case scenario would be they take it on again. But I just can't see it happening. And as I said, with the re-releases, it felt like a bit of a quick cash grab. Shenmue Online was a bit of a fiasco as well, and that blame is at Sega's door. You can't blame Shenmue as a franchise for the Shenmue Online stuff. That was the way that thing was handled, but they just, I don't know, there seems to be a bit of a stigma around some of it. Again, just my opinion. But then we sort of come on to the fan expectations around this, I guess, a little bit. Obviously, we would all like Sega to pick this thing up again and run with it and nail it, be through Shenmue 4 or a reboot or whatever. But the fact is, I think most of us need to let this go and go, look, if it happens, absolutely brilliant, fantastic, and we should keep targeting Sega for the reasons I've said. But is it likely to happen? Probably not. But if it does, I mean, funnier things have happened in gaming, then fantastic, we'd get behind whatever Sega wanted to do with it. But I just don't think that expectation for the community should be set that Sega are definitely going to pick this thing up. Very, very, very unlikely. But as I said, they will continue to license the IP out, and that is only a positive thing. So for us, the push continues towards Shenmue 4, the hashtag Let's Get Shenmue 4 on the 4th of every month. As you all know, we do the mass tweets at the same time, and I've done plenty of videos on how you can participate in that. I won't repeat it here. And also the hashtag Shenmue Anime 2, looking for Season 2 of the anime as well. And fingers crossed, one of those two things will come off. And also, as I keep saying in videos, in-games are picking up Shenmue 3, and we don't really know what's happening there at this point in time. So as I say, guys, the push for Shenmue 4 continues. The push for the anime Season 2 will continue as well. So, guys, that is sort of coming to the end of what is quite a lengthy video now of me talking quite a lot. Have I missed anything here? Are there any points you agree with or disagree with? Feel free to drop us a comment below and we'll happily respond to some of those and pick some of those up as we go. Don't forget, you can be a member for £2 a month, get all the video content like this ahead of time. Don't worry if you don't, it just goes to the Saturday video scheduling system we have, and any money we raise goes to the site running costs that James and I actively incur through the site, competitions and everything else. Don't forget, guys, give us a like, share, subscribe on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and all the usual social media outlets you can find us, including Blue Sky. We're very active over there these days as well. And I will be back with a video in the not too distant future. But for now, guys, take care and have a good one.